Welcome to another episode of the Luxury Rental Doctor Show, where we get to explore opportunities and insights that help busy medical professionals and those who are in high stress careers essentially achieve financial freedom through luxury short and midterm rental investing. I'm your host, Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh, and today we are diving into one of the hottest vacation rental markets on the East Coast. And I like to call it kind of a best kept secret, and it is the Pocono Mountains region. Joining me is my friend and one of our community's secret weapons, Mark Shay. Mark is a top realtor. He specializes specifically in vacation rentals in the Poconos. He's the co-founder of the Poconos Association of Vacation Rental Owners, and he is here to give us all the tea and share some insider tips and investment strategies on how to navigate life in the Poconos, local regulations, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and get started. Mark, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's a delight to be here, and it's been great working with some of the members of your community as we've been talking back and forth through clients
Yep.
for a number of years.
Absolutely. And something that I like to tell my community is find your who, right? Sometimes you wonder, well, how would I invest out of state? How would I accomplish XYZ? Sometimes that is the wrong question. The question is who, right? Who do I need in my corner to help me out? So Mark is definitely a staple in the community. He's our who. But Mark, I would love for you to let us know a little bit about yourself. What drew you to specializing in real estate in the Pocono Mountain region?
Well, thanks for that opportunity. Yeah, I have a career in sales. As you can see, I'm not a young guy. Had been working mostly in the university sector for helping recruit students, coming up with marketing strategies. In fact, representing organizations as agents to
Ooh.
recruit students from overseas. So some of those medical professionals may have come from some of my clients and their path of getting here, getting education and landing on shore. Uh, we had a vacation home that I've had for a number of years.
Mm.
It was near Blue Mountain, or is near Blue Mountain, big ski area in the southern section of the Poconos. And my wife likes to say, I got mad at my son because he said, Dad, I'm a big boy now and I'm not coming home for Thanksgiving and the holidays. I've got other families, and he'd since been married and he lives in Virginia. And so I evidently got a little rash and said, well, then let's just rent the house. And I think it was a culmination of empty nest and me working in the Philadelphia market, us not getting up to the mountains as much as we hoped. Kids would always sort of invite us and we'd go see them, and our kids are spread out. So we put it on Verbo and it just took off and started going real well. Decided to try to self manage it. We only listed it on Verbo. Just figuring at the time, I think this is 5, 6 years ago, the reputation for Airbnb was a little bit more partiers, more
Yeah.
like you couldn't quite get it. And we just, from the beginning, all of the Verbo guests were seemingly exactly what we wanted, which was families with kids who liked outdoor space. We have a dog, so we made our house pet friendly. You know, because of the dog, we've got a clever little dog door cut into a sliding window. And so the dogs, once they figure it out, go in and out and in and out. And, it's the whole house. And as we've discovered, people with pets are probably better guests than families with 9-year-olds. The 9-year-olds, they like stuff under the bed and hide things and, just, they get away with stuff the parents don't know, but the dogs kind of follow the rules. And the owners tend to be really, thankful that you can host them and will let their dogs share the property. And often they'll clean up and vacuum. I mean, we put vacuums out and they use them.
Yeah.
We say they have to, but I'm surprised that the cleaners will say it's super clean, and then you find out, oh, they had a dog, or we've had bunnies, we've had a couple of other sort of people who brought the family pets because, we just say pet friendly and we don't really we have 47 acres, so it kind of
Oh, nice.
allows for quite a lot of outdoor fun.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome.
COVID hits, my industry blows up, I'd say, based on the last president and the state of the world. The international student recruiting business kind of went in the tank. So, again, my lovely wife had said, "You need to do something. This higher ed thing isn't taking us anywhere. Why don't you get a real estate license?" I'm like, "Well, I'm kind of trapped. We're locked down. Why not? I got to sell something." So, got my license, went back to operate with a small family practice that was in near our vacation home. We're in Palmerton, Pennsylvania, by Blue Mountain, and got started and started to realize that people. I actually got startled at how difficult it was to get answers to where you can do short-term rental.
Mm.
Rules seem to be really quirky and not published and
Mhm.
very vague. We were in a wave that the rules were just starting to kick in.
Mhm.
So in Pennsylvania, we had a Supreme Court case back in 2018, which seemed to unlock the door to townships being able to regulate this. And it just was like a breakthrough moment where all of a sudden townships are like, okay, well, we have the authority to do this based on this court case where the zoning is to include it and they can set an ordinance to come up with the local law. And so the rules, the guides, the definition of nuisance, because a lot of these are little townships and just loud behavior is not necessarily illegal.
Yeah.
Right, and so with the short-term rental ordinances, they declared what a nuisance is. They declared
Mhm.
quiet hours. They made requirements as to parking regulations and occupancy limits for the homes, and nowhere did this seem to be published.
Mm.
So, as, my real estate practice started, I'm looking around and I'm like, I'll familiar with the internet, so I'll just put a blog up and I'll put the rules up. And just to make it simple, I'll do a red, yellow, green indicator. And so I called them scorecards.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, like I'm getting all these calls like, wow, you know the rules.
Yeah.
You must be an expert.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I put my neck on the line, putting a yellow or a red indicator. And so it was like, I will deep dive into the rules. I will not misguide anybody. I will understand just all the parameters that are involved and make that my focus. When I joined Keller Williams, one of the training seminars I remember was this commentary that the riches are in the niches.
Yes.
And it was like, so I was got to specialize in something. And since I know the rules, since I've got one of these as a rental property, I've got experience as, self-managing it. I guess this is what I'll specialize in. And so from there, it's just really been a deep dive, finding folks from out of the area who are just bewildered as to the rules, regulations,
Yeah.
the risks of this, and just walking them through time and time again, what the risks are, what the opportunity might be,
Yeah.
and focusing on now trying to get them to fully understand the market they're in and make wise purchases. So I'm happy to say that I've got at least 50 clients who are up and running with, short-term rentals. And to my knowledge, nobody bought something that they weren't allowed to use.
I
So
love that. I love that. And I think this is really an important conversation because when folks hear regulations, they typically shy away if they're aware that there are regulations. However, it's a double edged sword. I actually don't mind regulations as long as it's fair and I know what I can do, what I can't do, where I can operate. But again, as long as it's fair, and that's something I encountered when we were looking in the Poconos as well. It is a regulation-rich environment there in the Poconos. And what I found to be refreshing was your perspective. That's how I first connected with you with your scorecards. And so I think that that perspective is so important. I would love your take a little bit about regulations, your thoughts on regulations. Is it safe to operate in markets where there are regulations, just so that we can level set the audience to make sure they're aware of the pros and cons?
Yeah, I think we should take the officials at their word that the regulations are designed for health and safety,
Hmm.
that we are hopefully all focusing on the guest experience.
Yeah.
And therefore, when you regulate occupancy of a home or require fire extinguishers or have limitations that might seem anti-business, that there's some rationale behind it or some real logic behind it. It does set a level playing field. And I think one of the things I tell my clients is there's a benefit too, because if a community is regulating noise, then they're going to regulate everybody's noise. And if you're in an area without regulation, then the guy next door might be a little bit of a yahoo, might be shooting his guns off at midnight or fireworks or loud music or have something that might intimidate your guest. I At my house and our vacation rental, for a while we were running both the rental property for the house and a campsite. So
Mm,
was listed on Hip Camp. We had
yeah.
set up a spot.
I mean, you had
Uh,
47 acres.
right, it was kind of easy to partition off. But there was a neighbor of mine who, when it seemed like it was an uncanny coincidence that shortly after check in, he would go out and start target practicing.
Oh,
And the mountains and sound would ricochet. And there was more than a few times I got calls from guests who were scared that they're going to get hunted. And it's like,
oh my
no,
God.
he's got a range. It's safe. But at the same time, if you hear him, he could hear you. So just tone it down.
Yeah.
That's his way of telling you to quiet down. But that's not having those regulations. You don't. Your guests now are in a weird spot.
Yeah.
Uh,
Us city folks, it's like, "What's happening?"
you hear gunfire, and it's like, oh no, and I hear gunfire, and it's like, oh, Tommy's home.
Right. Right. Goodness gracious. And so what I got really excited about, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, was those STR scorecards and the fact that you niche down to appeal to us out of state individuals, right? Primarily, who or those who are in that tri-state area that are driving to the Pocono drive to market. Oh, that was just a masterclass. I know you said it real quick. I niched, I began. That was a masterclass right there, because that blog is what really place you as the credible individual in the marketplace. And the fact that you're already doing the research for us, it puts us, in a position where, okay, we don't have to start from scratch. I tell my members, always do your own due diligence, but at least we're not starting from scratch with Mark Shay's firm, which was awesome. So, could you tell us a little bit more about some of the regulatory constraints we should expect in the Poconos? I know different, like homeowners associations have their own regulations. There are different regions that have their own regulations. There are better HOAs than others, depending on amenities. So, what would you say would be an ideal area for our members to look into in terms of where are the best amenities and where are the most investor friendly regulatory um, the rules, if you will?
so the Poconos is a big region. We cover 4 counties in the northeastern corner of Pennsylvania. I-80 comes through the lower half, and I-84 comes through the upper half. Admittedly, I focus on the lower half
Mhm.
and the upper half, which is sort of highlighted by the Lake Wallenpaupack area. I'm aware of what's up there, but I'm not truly focused on that. So, uh, if you love boating, then Lake Wallenpaupack's the place to be because it's a huge lake with marinas all over the place, and it's one of the only places in the state that you could dock a power boat.
Mm.
So it's just almost crazy as to how many little marinas and HOAs with marinas are there. And, there's the town of Hawley and a couple of other spots that make it, a unique spot within Pennsylvania. So the Lake Wallenpaupack area, I don't know all of the regulations. We have four counties, and all the power in Pennsylvania, they call it a commonwealth because the power all sits within municipalities. Our counties really don't do a lot of control. So zoning and a lot of the ordinances and control of things happens at county level, or sorry, township level. So we've got townships and boroughs, and in these four counties, there's 74 of them. So that's 74 different zoning regulations. That's 74 different potential STR ordinances. And there's 74 different ways of enforcing, ways of inspecting. And that's why I think a lot of people get so overwhelmed with it. The idea that you could be in an area where there are no STRs is probably not a good idea. You should kind of go where the crowd is and just kind of take that as an endorsement. So when you're looking at Airbnb, look at the map, get a sense of who's in a given area as a real good quick indicator as to what's allowed and what's not. The regulations, I think we have them, and it sets a level playing field. What then gets a little more complicated and gets a little more inconsistent is the way the communities themselves behave. Most of the Poconos was developed as vacation home communities generations ago, late 60s, early 70s into the 80s. America's getting suburbanized. We're getting second cars. We're getting second homes. The interstates are getting connected and finished. And it makes great joy to go hop in the car and motor out to the mountains. These homes would sell for 10,000 bucks. They were built, the stereotypical Pocono home is a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,200 square foot chalet or salt box style on a third of an acre around a man-made lake times 100. They're everywhere. There's probably 25, 30,000 homes that were built this way. And they were typically summer cottages, not year round. And they were so affordable that people would just not even think about them as investments, but more, someone had once told me when I got started with this, oh, the Poconos, it's the poor man's Smokies. And it's like, yeah, that's fair,
That's hilarious.
but in a way, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
It was the middle class dream, right? This
Mhm.
is we're the American dream. We're getting a second home. It's affordable, and we don't have to spend a ton of money while we're there.
Mhm.
The old stereotype of loading up the station wagon or the minivan with the family and food,
Yeah.
and bring grandma so grandma cooks, and we just go up to the mountains and we
Mhm.
spend a week,
Yeah.
or we'll stay at a friend's place and stay up. So the perspective had always been that of just second homes.
Yeah.
And with the rise of Airbnb, with the rise has kind of allowed an anonymity to exist with this that seems to be at the heart of a lot of this regulation and a lot of this pushback.
Mm.
The notion that we don't know who owns the home and we don't know who they rent it to.
Mhm.
worries people within the neighborhood or civic leaders. And I think that's where a lot of these regulations of requiring guests to be registered, requiring certain performance out of the home are designed just so that they have a sense of what's going on.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's just an outcome. The sad part of this, and I think we're getting a better handle of this now, kind of as a region, is it forces people to either rent all the time because now you've got a cost. This townships have been increasingly raising the bar when it comes to the level of insurance you need or the restrictions you might have. A couple of townships have capped the number of occupancy. So no matter how big the house, you can only have 16 guests. Or they'll say no indoor fires, right? So wood burning fireplaces, the insurance companies don't like it, but now the townships are starting to say there's just too many tragedies. Alcohol and fireplaces make a rough mix, and we've seen too many tragedies that way. So now that becomes another restriction. So you have annual inspections, you have annual licenses, you've got increased insurance, your cost of cleaning, the bar keeps rising so that it actually is really hard to just casually rent a place. You either have to rent it all as a business or don't rent it at all and then perhaps go a little bit underground. And that's clearly backfiring when it comes to the regulations because we don't want people to go underground. We want people to comply and the rules are there in spirit to keep us all making sure we all focus on the guest.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are definitely some challenges. So, what would you say before we dive into some of those? What would you say is the initial draw for tourists to the Poconos, and what was the initial draw for investors alike?
So I think one of the main draws is, of course, proximity. We are 3 hours away from 47 million people,
Mm,
and that just a great place to get away for the weekend. And that has been traditionally the market. The Many of it is last minute bookings, so it's not uncommon to get people booking 10 days out. And one of the big attractions is I can rent a house and I could just hang out and I don't have to worry about anything. Here I am out in nature, and oh, look, there's a deer. Uh-oh, there's a bear. Okay, we got lots of squirrels.
mhm,
Those types of things you don't necessarily get in Brooklyn, Queens, or Northeast Philly, and so that I think is one of the main attractions is
yeah.
just a chance to get away. There are certainly things to do, and as the tourism industry is developed, we now have winter sports. So there's 4 or 5, depending on your opinion, ski resorts and places to go in the winter. There's been a little bit the Great Wolf Lodge has expanded and now open to the public just for day passes for their water park. We have a really nice convention center with an indoor water park called Kalahari. So the idea that there's indoor water parks, there's indoor water park at Split Rock, there's an indoor water park at Camelback. So a chance to get out of the house if that's what you want to do, also to be in the house and just stay in the house. I, as I tell people, with the most successful short-term rentals are the ones where people just pull in on Friday and hopefully stay there all week and leave the next Friday.
Yeah. Love that, love that. So there's nature, there's winter, there's boating, there's fishing, there's hunting. What would you say from a seasonality perspective? Do you believe the Poconos to be a three season, a two season? What are your thoughts, Mark?
So it does depend on where. I mean, those everything's nicely spread out from some standpoints.
Hmm.
So we have the Delaware River to the east, which has whitewater rafting. And then we've got the Lehigh River on the west and around the south, which has whitewater rafting. So if your thing is whitewater rafting, you're probably no more than 45 minutes away. Lake Wallenpaupack's great for boating. We also have Tobyhanna State Park and Beltsville Lake State Park, with big giant lakes where you could motorboat and water ski and jet ski and do those things if that's what you like to do. A lot of the communities themselves have their own lakes. Almost all of the community lakes are electric motors or just paddle, so kayaks, paddle boards, and the like. Uh, and that's just entertaining and fun for people who dying to get out of the city. So the I think the seasonality would be if you are within 20 minutes of one of those ski resorts, then you can kind of count on a good year-round business. I think everybody struggles with mid-March to late April. So the end of ski season generally wraps up around March 6th to 10th, and then through Easter into early May, it's just miserable up here. It's cold, wet, muddy, and if you're from an environment like that, you're hopping in a plane or you're driving down to Florida because you want warmth. So, it's generally what I tell people is that's the time you think about doing capital improvements.
Yeah.
So take your property offline, don't even rent it, shut it down. That's when you get it painted. That's when you get new floors. That's when you go through and actually live in it, right?
Mhm.
Yourself as the operator, go stay in the property, see what it needs. And I'm sure you tell your community this all the time, the things that we just take for granted and the cleaners would pass over, like, where's the spatulas? These pots are ratty. You
Yeah.
start using them yourself and you say, oh my goodness, why was I putting guests through this?
Yeah. A
But
forced
so I
I
think,
call it a forced vacation where you go,
right,
you have to
exactly,
make yourself a cup of coffee, cook a pasta meal, and see how you
right.
feel.
Oh, the coffee maker doesn't work. Oh, gee, yikes. So,
Mhm.
so we into May, June, July, August, super strong. We
Mhm.
die off, it seems, right after school starts.
Mhm.
Here in the Northeast, most of the schools kick in right around Labor Day. It pops back for October. October is a great month. Some people, it's their best month
Yeah.
because of the fall foliage and change of seasons.
Mhm.
Slow down a little bit. Right now, like we're in early November, kind of tapering, and then you get a surge with each of the Thanksgiving, Christmas holidays. So eh, the seasonality can be 70% occupancy, could be a goal if you're close to a ski area. If you're a little further away, it's maybe 45, 50% should be your goal. And yet, in real estate side of things, the market kind of adjusts.
Mhm.
So I love a community called Big Bass Lake, another one called Arrowhead Lake.
Mhm.
Now, they are a little far away from the ski areas, and their winter business is not that strong. So I suggest to my clients, shut it down. Just turn it off. Put Winterize the place, and the amount of wear and tear you get on a property during the winter is rough. And if you're going to try to be open year round in a market that's only going to give you 150 bucks a night, the wear and tear on your place is just going to be crushing. So,
Yeah.
you know, the price of the homes has adjusted.
Yeah.
So a
So let's talk
price,
about that for a moment because I love what you mentioned there. So one of the struggles I had when I first started out, Mark, was I was pushing for occupancy like many investors. Turns out I lost money if I pushed beyond a 75% occupancy rate. 65% was my sweet spot because 75%, 80%, I now have a product that is no longer up to par because it doesn't have that room to breathe so that maintenance could come in and deep cleans could happen. And now I've got a guest who's pissed off and I'm doing refunds, which was not a part of the formula, right? So
yeah,
when when you shake everything out at the end of the year, yes, I got more occupancy, but I made less money because the
yeah,
wear and tear, the refunds, all of that. And then the sweet spot was, yeah, 68%. It was like chef's kiss. that was like the peak. So we find that in the Poconos with our members, as well as if you have a bit of a larger property, we're not driving for 98% occupancy rate, right? Maybe for a studio in the city, where the cleaners could, they're in and out, right? In a high rise, but these are family homes with children and pets. So it does need that room to breathe. And you could still do well, when you're taking that into consideration. So it's a mindset shift, and I don't
Yep.
mean to like monopolize a conversation, but Mark, could you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what are the numbers looking like to invest there? And I think that's one of the draws for a lot of investors that are out of state. It is, you call it the poor man's smokies, but it is more cost effective. But I know that the pricing is correcting. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think we definitely are seeing a, if you want to call it a flight to quality,
Yeah.
a bit of a, I think we're heading toward a market where it'll be 80-20, in that 80% of the revenue is going to come from 20% of the homes.
Oof.
So it's a bit of a
I
super
love the
size,
80/20. Yes.
right? But so it's the super property concept that I think we're feeling. And a perfect example of this is a community called Lake Harmony.
Yeah.
And Lake
That's
Harmony,
where Dr. Sneha, I think, bought, as well as Nina and Yuri.
yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah, Lake Harmony.
So, especially if there have been some homes that have gone kind of this OBX route where all of a sudden they're 10 bedrooms and
Mm.
24-person
Ooh.
occupancy on a lake, and they're bringing in 5 grand a night,
What?
which is wonderful, right? But
Really?
doing it because they're like special venues,
Okay,
celebration houses.
gotcha.
We say party houses, it's going to be like, oh, a bunch of kids going to
Right.
trash the
No, like
not at 5 grand.
wedding venues, almost like an inn, right? Like back in the day. Yeah.
So there, it's a little out of the norm, because if you're renting at 5 grand a night and you're only renting 2 nights a week, Friday and Saturday, you're doing just fine, right?
Tell me about it.
So there, though, you get to that border of having to do, concierge services,
Yeah.
right? Is it now I've got to have a chef, I've got to
Mhm.
have a bartender, I've got to have a DJ, I've got to have entertainment of some kind. If
Mhm.
it's yoga instructor, or we're going to wheel in the big giant TVs
Yeah.
because the big game is coming on, or
Yeah.
something
Order
like,
tables and chairs and linen, like, for the table. Yeah.
yeah. So I think to get to that price point with those types of houses, you are running an inn.
Yeah.
The majority of the homes are 3 bedroom, 2 bath,
Mhm.
12 to 1,500 square feet.
Yeah.
They will stand out because something makes them stand out,
Mhm.
and it has to,
Yeah.
because the market's just saturated with that. If you look at the Airbnb listings on any given weekend, many of them will look like grandma's old house, because it is grandma's old house. Right? And I
Mhm.
can imagine some of the conversations, especially coming out of COVID, where we had this large surge in people coming,
Mhm.
and we also had a large surge in homes getting listed, right? And they got listed. I could just imagine grandma at the table and mom saying to daughter, well, you're in college and you know the internet. Why don't you take grandma's house and put it on Airbnb?
Mhm.
And so nothing gets updated. It's the nice plaid couch from 50 years ago, and the mismatched coffee cups, and
I
everything.
love every bit of that. Okay, so guys that are listening right now, that smells like opportunity to me.
Yeah, right.
That's music to my ears, and that's
Right.
why I think, like, Nina, she's done so well, Elena's done so well, she put in that little outdoor, sauna, just created a whole vibe, so that smells like opportunity to me. I don't know about you, Mark, but I live for grandma's old furnishings, and when I see that, I say, "I'm about to tear this market up to pieces."
Right. Well, if you use the rationale that properties succeed, either we'll just say 50% based on the property itself,
Mhm.
and the other 50% based on operations, which includes marketing,
Yeah.
right? Then how do you stand out?
Yeah.
So is it five-star service? There's
Mhm.
a woman I know, and she runs the Honeybee Hideaway,
Mm.
and she does very well because she has branded an experience
Yeah.
that is spending time at Jennifer's place.
Yeah.
The place is uniquely designed. It's a nice location,
Yeah.
but she hustles. And there's your favorite beverage. She knows why you're coming. She know everything is set up, and you just have a great experience. And the original Honeybee Hideaway was actually in a neighborhood which was not known to be quality homes.
Mhm.
Yet she was doing 4 times better than a house right down the street, identical house,
That's what I'm talking about.
because she branded it, just
Yes.
because she knew her audience, and she made it a romantic getaway, and for the most part, they pulled in, they stayed, they had their lovely 2 nights, they went home. So, that's one way. I think the other way, like you say, with the sauna or something that makes it stand out.
100%. 100%. All right. So we alluded to some numbers. Let's give the people what they want, some actual numbers. What are we looking at for, say, I know you helped Nina and Yuri get theirs. And Elena's was a 3 bedroom. Nina and Yuri they went a little bit larger with a 6 bedroom. Now Elena, she's in Cool Ball.
Yeah, so she's in Arrowhead Lake.
Okay, Lake Arrowhead. Yeah, Arrowhead Lake. And
Yep.
then Nina is in Lake Harmony.
Yeah,
So let
she's over in Laurel Woods, which is by she could see the ski
Mhm.
slopes at Big Boulder.
Yeah, yeah, you and that
You can
that
walk there.
view
It's
is
not a bad walk.
yeah, it's beautiful. So what are we talking about in terms of numbers? What is the investment looking like these days? And I know it changes every day. By the time this episode is posted, it's gonna change again.
So the trend seems to be bigger and more.
Newer probably, right? New is better than better,
Yeah,
maybe?
because
Mhm.
realize most of these houses, especially the little 3 bed, 2 bath, 1,200 square foot
Yeah.
chalets, weren't built with air conditioning,
Excuse me? I'm
right?
from Florida. Excuse me?
Right.
What did you say?
No air conditioning. So, you put mini splits, you accommodate that, but you should definitely have air conditioning in your place. And you might not think of looking at a reservation, but you look at some of the reviews on some of these old houses, grandma's old house,
Yeah.
and you realize, oh, we have a ceiling fan and we have a couple box fans in the closets, and maybe if they're forward thinking, a couple of room air conditioners shoved into a window here and there. So that's an easy upgrade. The homes in the three to $400,000 range will probably earn you 30 to 50 gross.
Okay.
Then you start to see movement toward, well, we'll get bigger homes that are more suburban style. So you lose the mountain charm,
Mhm.
but now you're seeing 2,500 or 3,000 square foot homes with central air, central heat, ductwork. You'll see them with maybe a 1 or 2 car garage. Those we'll see more in the 500,000,
Mhm.
$600,000 range,
Okay.
depending on bedroom count.
Mhm.
So getting those with 5 bedrooms certainly is ideal. 6 bedrooms, you really start to differentiate. There's not many sevens, eights, and very, very few 10-bedroom places. So that's where you start looking at the AirDNA numbers or the B&B Calc numbers, and you
Mhm.
start to say adding a bedroom or two to a property can really shoot the numbers up. But we got to make sure we worry about what happens when you flush,
Yeah.
because a lot of these are on septic systems,
Yeah. That's true.
and the townships and their ordinance have all started to put occupancy tied to bedroom count based on the septic system.
Septic. Yep.
So it makes a lot of sense to put in a new converted garage and put 2 bedrooms in it and a game room in it, or take the lower level and put 2 beds and a bath in it. but you just have to make sure that you can legally do that or physically do that, because sometimes there's limitations because of the environment to expand your septic system. So that makes properties that are on sewer, and we do have a few of those. There's
Mm,
a Penn Estates, a Pocono Country Place, and the whole Lake Harmony area are on central sewers, and that draws people to them because it's a whole lot easier to add some bedrooms once you're on
nice.
a central sewer system.
Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good to know. And I know Andrina in our community, she just purchased a newer property that was under construction. She went back and forth
Yeah.
with the regulations there and trying to figure out what the new rules were going to be that were set in place. So this takes me to our question about the Pocono Association of Vacation Rental Owners. Now, you are instrumental in founding that association, right?
Yeah, I think, as some of your clients will say,
Uh-huh.
kind of to better represent them and give them a voice in the local area, we decided, we and Marty Nickel gets a lot of credit for this. We co-founded this. Marty's in the mortgage business. I'm in the real, buyer's agency business. And we were out at lunch a couple years ago, and we just said our clients are getting shafted.
Yeah.
We're like second class citizens.
Mm.
We should have rights.
Hard paying clients too,
Yeah,
contributors to the economy,
and all
right?
of the jobs
Yes.
and vitality and curb
Mhm.
appeal and all of those wonderful things that we want to celebrate the good and equally work out to get rid of the bad,
Mhm.
so that we could raise our industry up a level.
Yeah.
And so we have formed a trade association,
Mm.
registered as a 501c6 full trade association, and we've gotten great support from our local visitor bureau,
Yeah.
because in Pennsylvania, the short term rental guests pay the state's hotel tax.
You see?
And so then that is earmarked to come back to the counties
Yeah.
to develop tourism. So watch Pocono TV. It's got a streaming channel as well as broadcast in Philadelphia and New York. And you get to see firsthand 24/7 life in the Poconos. And that's the kind of thing that the hotel tax goes to. And so they want to see vacation rentals flourish. We've seen their stats, which have 11,000 hotel rooms in the region and roughly 6,800 short term rental properties.
Wow.
6,800 short term rental properties with an average of 3 bedrooms.
Wow.
Hotel guests stay 1.3 days. STR guests stay 3.5.
Mhm.
So you look at the economic impact, if you measure it based on that tax, STRs bring about the same as hotels and resorts. So it's key. And I think it's not like you can swap them out.
Mm-mm.
People who go to hotels and casinos and water parks, they like hotels, casinos, and water parks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Who like the houses are coming because of the houses.
Period.
And those houses could be elsewhere. And in fact, some of our biggest competitors, as the tourism business goes, are the Catskills,
Mm.
Berkshires, Vermont. And so our most successful operators are the ones who can bring people to the Poconos instead of having them consider going to Vermont. So that's
Wow.
the struggle for the New York crowd, because it's fair to say 50 to 60% of the owners and guests are coming out of that market.
Wow. Love that. Love that. You see, so that's to me, it's the bright line, that vacation rentals are here to stay in the Poconos. And I'm so excited to be joining you for the annual Pocono SDR conference coming up in March, where I'll be sharing some insider tips and tricks myself that I can pull out of my sleeve, so that as a community, right, the rising tide lifts all boats. We can all rise together in the Poconos. So I'm super excited about that.
Well,
So,
glad to have you. And I think, a lot of what the message you deliver to your community and I try to deliver to my guests is, how can you make your property stand out?
Yeah.
right? And it's a diverse market with
Mm.
all sizes, shapes of families or individuals. We bring pets, we don't bring pets, we bring kids, we don't bring kids.
Yeah.
We come as single gender events, we come for big games. You know, there's a chance to have your property stand out by being unique.
Yeah.
And a client of mine said, he was one of the reasons he was looking was because every time he tries to rent, he's got little kids and the
Yeah.
toddlers are always getting into stuff. So he's like, the thing I'm going to do is make my place toddler proof.
Mm.
Door locks, I'm going to have gates, I'm going to have play yards, I'm going to do make it all kid friendly, and that's his brand.
I love it.
I, we need, as we talked about with the occupancy, right? You want to make sure you rent every Saturday.
Yeah.
That's the goal. So 50 bookings a year.
Mm-hmm.
They only come for a couple days. Make sure it's not that many when you're looking at a 6,800. Like how do you separate from those 6,800?
Yeah.
What's your special niche? What's the value proposition of your property
Yeah.
that's going to separate you? There was a house I got to know, and the owner was focusing on immunocompromised.
Mm.
And they came in and they did like a 8-hour hospital grade clean, certified it as such. And the difference seemed to be not that they just were able to do this, but they broke the reliance on Airbnb, and she was able to connect and do marketing direct. So they were getting like
Mm.
70% of their bookings direct. And it's because she had that connection.
Yeah.
They made the property ready for that, and they didn't now have to rely on the portals and the low price. And with that traveling group, tragedy would strike if they didn't live up to expectations.
Yeah.
And so those guests, assuming you guarantee that the property is clean, will pay almost anything
Yeah.
because the consequence is grim
Yeah.
if you fail.
Oh
And
my goodness.
yeah, so that's because again, drivable distance
Yeah.
makes us able to draw from a huge segment that isn't restricted from other markets because they would have had to have flown or they would have had to drive a long distance or
Yeah.
here you have special diet, bring it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I love it. I love it. And so it's just so thoughtful. And the things that you're talking about, the pet proofing, the immunocompromised clean, these aren't, the standard amenities of, resort style swimming pool, hot tub. These aren't the things that will necessarily break the bank. It's that niche, it's that thoughtfulness that comes with sometimes it's your own personal situation and you recognize, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had a place where my special needs child could enjoy, and now you've created something for individuals who may be encountering your exact challenge. So, that warms my heart. And that's what it's about. We just had Cheryl inside of our community yesterday. She said that her recent guest was given a year to live. And all of a sudden, sadly, someone passed away at a hospital there in Virginia and she was able to get that liver that she needed. And now the guest is recovering in her home near the hospital. And it's a 76-day booking and it's pet friendly. Everything got, verified. It's okay for the pet to come in. And she's got her dog there helping her with her recovery. And I almost started bawling, I'm like, this is
you know,
what it's about for me, right? Yeah, you think you're just showing people how to do this one thing. And then when you hear these stories, you realize the ripple effect that it has. And so for me, that's the vibe. That's an absolute game changer. And Mark, I recognize, yes, we have businesses. We're running a business, but you setting up and founding this association so that our members could continue to thrive and have people think that, oh, they bought a second home, they're this rich doctor. Most of my members are strapped down under a chokehold of a quarter of a million to half a million dollars in student loan debt. They're trying to find a way. They're taking all of their little savings, their 401k, and just, borrowing against that. Of course, talk to your financial advisor. I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, but they're looking for a way to curb some of that burnout. So that brings us to our rapid fire question. Can you share, Mark, a moment when you felt completely burnt out and how you overcame it?
Oh, well, I'll say the strength of my business comes from my wife,
Oh.
and she sees it, and she just will take the phone and doesn't quite drop it in the toilet, but the proverbial toilet, and just zip it up. She, she gives me this little nod, and she calls surfs up, and so we just run and do something that just says, you got to get away from it. It's good. There's always going to call. They're always going to call. Clients are always there, but there are times you've got to be on your toes, and you got to be able to keep going
Yeah, yeah,
at your best. So if I'm not at my best, then it doesn't help whether I'm working 20 hours a day.
yeah. Oh,
So
I love
I'll
it.
give her credit for keeping me sane.
I love it. I love it. Having that partner, right, that keeps you accountable and it's cheering you on. That's a game changer. What's a book or a resource that completely changed your perspective on life or on work?
Well, I joined Keller Williams,
Mhm.
and the panting you hear in the background is our dogs. So she just jumped in.
Oh, we're pet
Uh,
friendly here too. So mine have been barking downstairs the whole time.
Keller Williams,
Mhm.
Gary Keller's got a number of books, and a few of them have just really been instrumental in helping me build my real estate business and just try to
Mm,
understand the processes and flows and sort of the mechanics behind it.
yeah.
So I'd say that guidance has been great. Early on, I was a big fan of those Tom Peters books. I'll date myself.
Mm,
So, In Search of Excellence, and the kind of things that you could do to stand out, and
okay.
you know uh, build good to great, and those
Oh,
types
yeah,
of things.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
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 So,
Nice. What's the craziest real estate story you've heard or experienced?
oh, um, I think I've gotten much more casual with bears. you know, so you know, uh, for me, seeing a bear kind of rambling through somebody's backyard. There was a couple of months ago, I was out with a client, and we were in this community called Split Rock, and we see a bear, and he grabs his wife, and it's like, "Honey, don't run." It's like, "Yeah." So we just sort of stand on the deck, and we watch the bear ramble through, and then the bear goes around the corner, and I realize I've got my car windows open,
Oh my gosh.
and I've got a lunch cooler in there. It's like, "Oh, no." So, I'm like, "Wait a
Rookie mistake.
that's my lunch." And I'm thinking I'm gonna go after the bear. So I hit the panic button on the car,
Mhm.
and the bear didn't scratch or anything. I don't know how, if he stuck his head in the car, we'll never know. But we then peeked around the corner, and the car's still blaring, the horn blaring. The bear's ready to head up a tree, and then it looked at us, and we started talking to it, and then it ran off. So, you know, I didn't think it was a close call, but some people, the guy who cleans our septic says he's 13-0 wrestling bears. Um,
Oh my gosh.
Again, something I don't recommend. Um, One of the clients, he's now running a property management business.
Mhm.
He bought sight unseen in the Poconos,
Oh, wow.
and he bought in this community called a Pocono Country Place, and he's been doing very well there.
Nice.
And he came one time, and he said the home inspector was there, and they were having a little problem. And the home inspector said, "You really should shut the door, your crawl space door." And then he went in, he goes, there was insulation all over the place.
Mm.
So it turned out that winter hibernation, a bear hibernated in his crawl space, tore the insulation out from under the floors, and built himself a little nest.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
we learned to lock doors and close off our crawl spaces, not just to keep people out, but to keep bears from hibernating.
Oh my gosh. I can't even. That is hilarious. Yes, bears are like from a Miami girl, I'm telling you. Bears are a thing. Bears, trash can, trash cages.
Yeah,
It's a
right.
whole different
Bear
culture.
boxes, right?
Yes.
Bear boxes, but, you see sometimes sort of they're very much part of the environment. They're not
Mhm.
much of a threat, but, and they're also in everybody's decor.
Yeah.
So, maybe a suggestion, don't go to the
Switch it
Bulldog outlet and just buy a bunch of bear tablecloths and bear this and bear that and cute little
up.
sayings that have bears in them, because everybody's got them, right? Stand out, do something different,
Big when they
break
zig
from the
zag.
bear motif.
100%. Well, Mark, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing all of these invaluable insights with our audience. For anyone at all who's considering investing in the Poconos, or if you're just wanting to learn more, Mark will take amazing care of you. I've been keeping him a secret, so you know you're my favorite if I'm sharing him as our fantastic resource. We will add his links to the show notes. Mark, what I have for you is PoconoVacationHomeSales.com. Is that
Yep,
still okay? PoconoVacationHomeSales.com. And of
home of the
course,
scorecards.
what was that?
Home of the scorecards.
Home of the scorecards. Love that. And of course, the Pocono Association of Vacation Rental Owners at poconosvro.org to learn more. So we'll add those links in the show notes. And I want you to remember, guys, that financial freedom is all about making informed decisions, partnering with experts like Mark. That can make all the difference. Okay. So until next time, stay inspired and keep investing in your dreams. I love you all to the moon and back. Bye bye for now.